They say a queen knows the precise moment her crown begins to slip. For Isolde Moreau, it happened on a Tuesday in late October when the heavy oak doors of the Sterling Pack Hall swung open and her husband walked in with another woman on his arm. But to understand how a Luna ends up running through a Washington rainstorm with nothing but a duffel bag and a death wish, you have to go back. Back to the beginning. Back to when she still believed in promises made under a harvest moon. The coronation took place under a moon so full it looked pregnant with light. Isolde wore a gown the color of winter starlight, and when Dominic Thorne placed the Luna's circlet on her head, the entire Sterling pack howled their approval into the October sky. She was 23 years old. He was 27. They were true mates bound by something older than choice, deeper than logic. The bond between them felt like warmth spreading through her chest, a second heartbeat that pulsed in time with his. When he kissed her in front of 3,000 witnesses, she tasted his scent, dark pine and rain-soaked earth, and thought it would be enough. For the first year it was. They ruled the Western territories like partners, like lovers, like the future that the pack had been promised. Dominic commanded with the kind of natural authority that made alphas from California to British Columbia bend their necks in respect. Isolde softened his edges, smoothed the political tensions, turned the pack house from a military compound into something that almost resembled a home. At night, wrapped in sheets that smelled of them both, he would trace the Luna's mark on her shoulder and whisper about the children they'd have. Strong sons, fierce daughters, a legacy written in bloodline and bone. Month by month, her cycle came and went, regular as clockwork, empty as a promise no one could keep. By year 2, the whispers started, soft at first, pitying glances from the Omega females who changed the linens and found no evidence of conception. Loaded silences during council meetings when Elder Corvus Blackwood would mention casually the importance of securing the bloodline. Isolde began drinking teas that tasted like dirt and desperation. Saw healers who burned sage and made her swallow herbs that turned her stomach inside out. Human fertility specialists in Sadal who ran tests and frowned at charts and used words like unexplained and keep trying. Year 3, Corvus delivered the verdict himself. She remembered every detail of that afternoon. The way October light slanted through the medical office windows, turning everything the color of old amber. Corvus standing beside the human doctor, his silver hair gleaming, his expression carefully neutral. The folder in his hands thick with test results. The doctor's voice clinical and kind. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thorne, your ovarian reserve is severely compromised. Natural conception is for all practical purposes impossible." Dominic's hand had tightened on hers. She'd felt his wolf's grief through their connection, raw and cutting. She never saw the actual test results. Corvus kept the folder. For the records, he said, for the pack's medical archives. She should have known then, should have questioned why the chief elder about the pack doctor delivered news that personal. Should have wondered why Corvus's mouth twitched just slightly in something that might have been satisfaction. But grief is a kind of blindness, and Isolde was drowning. The pack house was a sprawling estate of Douglas fir and riverstone built into the side of a mountain overlooking Puget Sound. Isolde learned every corner of it, every mahogany-paneled hallway where pack members would fall silent when she passed, every window seat where she'd curl up with books she couldn't focus on watching eagles hunt over water she couldn't swim in anymore. Her wolf had gone quiet, not absent, but subdued like a flame turned down to barely a flicker. It happened sometimes, the healer said, when a female couldn't fulfill her biological purpose. The animal retreated. Self-preservation, they called it. Isolde called it dying by inches. Dominic tried. She had to give him that. He'd hold her through the nights when she'd wake up crying from dreams of children with his eyes. He'd dismiss council members who suggested delicately that perhaps a barren Luna should step aside. He'd swear over and over that they had time, that she was enough. But she could feel the pressure building, in the way conversations stopped when she entered the council chamber, in the careful distance the Omega females kept as if infertility might be contagious, in Corvus's cold gray eyes watching her across the dinner table like a predator watching wounded prey. It was during year 4 that she found her grandmother's journal. The pack house had a library that smelled of old leather and older secrets. Isolde spent hours there seeking solace in words written by people whose tragedies were safely historical. One afternoon, wedged behind a complete set of Tolkien, she found a slim, leather-bound book with no title. She opened it, saw her grandmother's handwriting elegant and firm. Marin Thorne née Hartley, Personal Journal, 1982 to 1989. Isolde had never met her grandmother. Marin died 2 years before Isolde was born, killed in a rogue attack on the southern border. But pack legend painted her as formidable, beautiful, uncompromising, the kind of woman who could silence a room just by entering it. Isolde traced her fingers over the ink and started reading. Most of it was mundane. Pack politics, weather observations, recipes for the kind of comfort food that required patience. But scattered throughout were entries that felt like letters to a future granddaughter. March 15th, 1985. Corvus Blackwood proposed today. Brought his whole family as if spectacle would pressure me into yes. I refused. Some men, when rejected, turn sour as old milk. Watch him. He's the kind who remembers. September 3rd, 1986. If you're reading this, granddaughter, and you feel trapped, remember, a cage with silk bars is still a cage. I ran once, came back on my own terms. You can too. June 12th, 1988. The elders think they own us because we're female. They're wrong. We own ourselves. Never forget that. Isolde read that journal cover to cover 3 times. Then she hid it in the bottom of her dresser wrapped in a silk scarf and tried to ignore the way Corvus watched her during council meetings, the way his jaw tightened whenever Dominic touched her in public. Marin had rejected him 40 years ago, and Corvus apparently was the kind of man who kept score. The Winter Solstice Gala was the social event of the pack calendar. 300 guests, alphas from allied territories, entertainment, food, politics, disguised as celebration. As Luna Isolde oversaw every detail, seating charts, menu selections, security rotations, it gave her something to do besides feel like a decoration gathering dust. She was in the main hall reviewing the guest list when Corvus appeared beside her. He moved like smoke, quiet and creeping. Luna. Just that, her title delivered like an accusation. She didn't look up from her notes. Elder Blackwood. The British Columbia pack is sending their youngest alpha. Unmated. Strong bloodline. How fortunate for him. A pause, then softer, the blade hidden in silk. A Luna without an heir is decoration, not dynasty. You understand that, don't you? Isolde's pen stopped moving. She set it down carefully, turned to face him. Up close, Corvus looked like what he was, a man in his mid-60s who'd spent a lifetime accumulating power. Silver hair, cold eyes the color of January sleet, a mouth that knew how to smile without meaning it. Is there something specific you need, Elder? Her voice was steady, that at least she'd mastered, the art of sounding calm while everything inside her screamed. Only to ensure you're prepared. The council grows restless. 5 years is a long time to wait for something that may never come. He walked away before she could respond, left her standing there, fingers white-knuckled on the mahogany table, heart trying to climb out of her throat. That night, Dominic came to bed late. Council emergency, he said. She pretended to be asleep, listening to him undress in the dark, feeling the mattress dip as he climbed in beside her. He didn't reach for her. She didn't reach for him. Their connection had started to feel like a leash. The afternoon it all shattered, Isolde was arranging white roses. Fitting, she'd think later. White for funerals. It was October again. 5 years, almost to the day since her coronation. The main hall smelled of beeswax and the first hints of wood smoke from the massive stone fireplace. Through the western windows, she could see storm clouds building over the sound, turning the water the color of tarnished silver. The heavy oak doors swung open. Dominic walked in, but he wasn't alone. The woman trailing slightly behind him was beautiful in a way that made Isolde's stomach drop. Golden hair that caught the light, porcelain skin, eyes like cut sapphire. She wore a cream cashmere coat, tastefully expensive, and beneath it a silk dress in dove gray. It wasn't her appearance that made the air in Isolde's lungs turn to ash. It was her scent. Every wolf has a signature scent unique as fingerprints. Dominic smelled of dark pine and rain-soaked earth. Isolde carried wildflowers and petrichor. This woman smelled like vanilla orchids, drenched in Dominic's scent. Isolde's pen slipped from her fingers, clattered against the polished wood. The sound echoed in the suddenly suffocating silence. Dominic's jaw was tight, his posture rigid. His eyes, when they met hers, held something she'd never seen before. Guilt, and underneath it, resignation. He placed a hand on the small of the woman's back. Protective, possessive. Isolde. His voice sounded wrong, too formal, too careful. We need to talk, in my study. Not our study, his. The woman stepped forward, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You must be the Luna. I've heard so much about you. I'm Lillian Ashford. Her coat shifted, fell open. Isolde saw the swell, 5 months, maybe more, round and firm and undeniable. The room tilted. Walls became distant suggestions. Somewhere far away, Dominic was saying something about the study, about privacy, about needing to explain. But Isolde couldn't hear him over the roaring in her ears, the howling of her wolf clawing its way up her throat. She followed them. What else could she do? Her legs moved on muscle memory, carrying her through the hall, up the stairs, into the study that smelled of leather and lies. Corvus was already there. Of course he was. Sitting in one of the wingback chairs like he owned it, like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. The smile on his face was small, satisfied. Dominic closed the door. The click of the lock felt like a cage snapping shut. Isolde stood in the center of the room, her spine straight, refusing to let them see her crumble. Not yet. Not while they were watching. What is this? Her voice came out steady, eerily calm. Lillian turned slow and deliberate. Let her coat slide off completely. The dress beneath clung to her frame, and there was no hiding it now. The curve of her belly, the unmistakable, undeniable evidence. I'm carrying Alpha Thorne's child. Gentle, almost apologetic. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Isolde looked at Dominic, waited for him to deny it, to laugh, to tell her this was some sick political maneuver she didn't understand yet. He looked at the floor. That silence broke something vital inside her, a snap she felt in her bones. How? The words scraped out of her. You swore, you promised we'd figure it out together. Dominic's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His presence filled the room with pressure, but it did nothing to Isolde. She was his mate, his equal. The summer summit, he said, voice rough. 4 months ago, I was drunk. Don't. Isolde cut him off. Don't you dare blame alcohol for a choice you made. Corvus cleared his throat. If I may, he pulled a folder from his briefcase. Crisp, prepared. Like he'd been rehearsing this. We've had the pregnancy verified by 3 separate specialists. Genetic markers confirm sterling bloodline. The child is legitimate. He set ultrasound images on the desk. Genetic test results. Official-looking documents with stamps and signatures. All lies Isolde would learn later. All expertly forged. But in that moment, they looked real. The council has made a decision, Corvus continued, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. Miss Ashford will assume the title of Luna. The pack requires visible proof of succession. We cannot afford to wait any longer on uncertain prospects. Isolde's gaze snapped to him. Uncertain prospects. Is that what you're calling me now? It's calling reality what it is. Lillian stepped forward, one hand resting delicately on her belly. I don't want to be cruel, Isolde. Truly. But you've had 5 years. You couldn't give him what he needs, what the pack needs. I can. The sheer audacity of it, the calculated sweetness in her voice. Isolde turned to Dominic. Tell her she's wrong. Tell them this isn't happening. His eyes, when they finally met hers, had shifted, wolf and man blurring together. I don't have a choice, Isolde. The council was going to call a vote of no confidence. Strip me of the alpha title. The pack needs an heir, a legitimate bloodline. It was one night, it meant nothing. But it gave you what I couldn't. The arrangement is actually quite civilized, Corvus interjected. You'll retain residence in the East Wing. Maintain your status as Dominic's true mate. The pack will understand. These things happen. Isolde stared at him, then at Lillian, then at Dominic, the man she'd loved for 5 years, who was asking her to be his dirty secret while another woman wore her crown. You want me to stay in the East Wing, while she takes my title, my place, my life. It's for the good of the pack, Dominic said. The same phrase she'd heard 1,000 times. The excuse that justified everything. You're still my mate, Isolde. That doesn't change. We just adjust. Adjust. She tasted the word, found it bitter. You want me to watch her raise your child. Attend council meetings where she sits in my seat. Smile and pretend I'm fine with being replaced because it's politically convenient. You're not being replaced, Dominic tried. You're your mistress. The word came out sharp. That's what you're describing. I become the mistress while your pregnant lover becomes your wife. Lillian's hand went to her belly, protective. There's no need for vulgarity. There's every need. Isolde's voice dropped to something dangerous. You walked into my home, carrying my mate's child, stealing my title, and you want civility, Corvus stood. Luna, Isolde, I understand you're emotional, but the council's decision is final. You have until tomorrow morning to move your personal effects to the East Wing. Miss Ashford will be presented to the pack at the Solstice Gala. Tomorrow, they'd planned this down to the day. Isolde looked at the 3 of them, these people who decided her fate without consulting her. Then she looked at Dominic, her mate, her king, the man who'd sworn in front of the moon and their entire pack that she was his equal. Tell me something, she said quietly. Did you ever love me, or was I just a placeholder until someone more useful came along? His face crumpled. Isolde, you know I don't know anything anymore. She turned toward the door. Where are you going? Corvus's voice sharp with command. She didn't answer, didn't look back, Just walked out of the study with her spine straight and her head high, even though every cell in her body was screaming. She made it to her bedroom before the first sob hit, locked the door, collapsed on the floor beside the bed, her chest cracking open, their connection tearing at her insides like fishhooks dragging through flesh. You can't break a true mate bond, not without death, but you can make it feel like dying. She dry heaved over the bathroom sink, her vision blurring with tears she'd been holding back for too long. In the mirror, she saw herself, 28 years old, supposedly barren, utterly replaceable. No, not replaceable. Replaced. The difference mattered. It took 20 minutes before she could breathe normally again, before she could think beyond the animal howl of betrayal. Then she started to plan. She knew pack law. A mate couldn't simply leave. The alpha's word was law. If she tried to walk out the front door, the guards would stop her before she reached the driveway. She'd be locked in the East Wing, a prisoner to her own broken heart, forced to watch Lillian's belly grow, while her own remained empty. Unless she ran, unless she became something they couldn't track, unless she disappeared. Isolde opened her dresser drawer, pulled out the silk scarf, unwrapped Grandmother Marin's journal, flipped to the entry dated September 3rd, 1986. If you're reading this, granddaughter, and you feel trapped, remember, a cage with silk bars is still a cage. I ran once, came back on my own terms. You can too, on my own terms. The words felt like permission, like inheritance. Isolde wiped her eyes, stood, went to her closet and pulled down a duffel bag from the top shelf. She had maybe 12 hours before they'd lock her in. 12 hours to vanish. Outside, the storm was building. She could hear thunder rolling in from the sound, feel the pressure drop that meant heavy rain. Perfect. Rain would wash away her scent. Thunder would mask the sound of her leaving. She packed quickly. A few changes of clothes. The cash she'd been squirreling away in her personal safe, $8,000 in various denominations. Her grandmother's journal. A hunting knife. The fake ID she'd gotten 2 years ago, back when she'd thought about running, but hadn't had the courage. Isolde Woods, it read. Close enough to remember. Different enough to hide. Then she went to the pack apothecary. It was located in the basement, accessible by a back stairway the servants used. At this hour, it was empty. She picked the lock with a hairpin, a skill Marin's journal had taught her, and slipped inside. The shelves were lined with jars and bottles, dried herbs and tinctures, all carefully labeled. She found what she needed on the third shelf from the bottom. Wolf's Bane, aconitum, monk's hood, highly toxic to werewolves. Consumed in large doses, it could kill. But taken in small, carefully measured amounts, it did something else entirely. It suppressed the wolf, shut down the animal senses, made a werewolf smell completely, utterly human. It would poison her slowly, make her sick, weaken her, but it would also make her invisible. She took 3 jars, wrapped them carefully in a towel, added them to her duffel. A soft knock on the doorframe made her spin around, heart in her throat. Theo Cross stood there. Dominic's beta, 30 years old with dark hair and darker eyes and a loyalty she'd always assumed belonged to his alpha. Don't scream, he said quietly. I'm not here to stop you. Isolde's hand tightened on the duffel. Then why are you here? To give you this. He held out a burner phone. Cheap plastic, probably bought at a gas station. My number's already programmed in. Only call in emergencies. But if you need help, I'll answer. She stared at the phone. Why would you help me? You're his beta. I'm also your friend, or I'd like to think so. Theo's expression was grim. What they're doing to you is wrong, Isolde. Corvus has been planning this for months, maybe longer. Dominic didn't see it, but I did. Planning what? Getting Lillian pregnant. Getting Dominic compromised. Corvus arranged that suite at the summer summit, made sure Dominic and Lillian were paired for the opening dinner, made sure the wine flowed freely. Theo shook his head. I can't prove it, but I know Corvus. He doesn't leave anything to chance. Isolde took the phone, slipped it into her jacket pocket. If Corvus finds out you helped me, he won't. I'm good at keeping secrets. Theo glanced toward the stairs. The guard rotation changes in 30 minutes. Go through the servants' entrance on the south side. There's a drainage tunnel that leads to the service road. From there, you're on your own. Why are you doing this? Theo met her eyes. Because Marin was my aunt, and she'd haunt me forever if I let Corvus destroy her granddaughter without fighting back. The revelation hit like a slap. Your family, distant, but yes. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, handed it to her. The combination to Corvus's office safe. I don't know what's in there, but if you get the chance before you leave, it might be worth looking. He turned to go, stopped. Isolde, run far, run smart. And whatever you do, don't stop taking the Wolf's Bane until you're ready to be found. Then he was gone, silent as smoke. Isolde stood there for a long moment holding the paper trying to process what had just happened. Theo was Marin's nephew, which made him her cousin. Family she didn't know she had. Family who was helping her escape. She checked her watch. 28 minutes until the guard rotation. Corvus's office was 2 floors up. She took the servants' stairs, moving quickly and quietly. The storm outside was building, rain starting to hammer against the windows, thunder getting closer. The office door was locked, but she'd gotten good at picking locks. Inside the room smelled like old paper and older grudges. She went straight to the painting behind the desk, a landscape of mountains that had always seemed too dramatic for Corvus's taste. It swung away to reveal a wall safe. She entered the combination Theo had given her. The safe clicked open. Inside folders. Dozens of them. She grabbed the ones with her name on them, stuffed them into her duffel without reading. There wasn't time. Then she saw it. A folder labeled Biome Project Replacement. She opened it. The first page was a timeline. Dated 3 years ago. Phase 1 sterility diagnosis fabricated. Check. Phase 2 isolate from support systems. Check. Phase 3 it introduce viable alternative. In progress. Phase 4 transition of title scheduled for winter solstice. Her hands started shaking. She flipped through the pages, found her medical files, the ones Corvus had supposedly stored for the archives. Except these weren't the files she'd been shown. These were dated 5 years ago, before the diagnosis. Results. Ovarian reserve excellent. No abnormalities detected. Prognosis for natural conception favorable. She'd never been infertile. Corvus had lied. He'd forged the diagnosis, destroyed 3 years of her life, broken her spirit, isolated her. Also, he could replace her with someone he could control. Revenge for Marin's rejection, 40 years overdue. The rage that hit her was so pure it burned cold. She wanted to march downstairs and shove these papers in Dominic's face. Wanted to watch Corvus burn for what he'd done, but rage was a luxury she couldn't afford. She stuffed the folder into her duffel, closed the safe, left everything else exactly as it had been. 18 minutes until the guard change. She made it to the servants' entrance with 5 minutes to spare. The tunnel Theo mentioned was barely 4 feet high, slick with rainwater and moss. She crawled through it on her hands and knees, her duffel dragging behind her, the sound of thunder masking any noise she made. She emerged into the storm soaked and shaking 300 yards from the pack house. Ahead through sheets of rain, she could see the service road. Behind her, their connection pulled. Dominic on the other end, confused, starting to feel something wrong. She started running. The Greyhound station was 6 miles away. She made it in 43 minutes, her human form pushed to its limits, the rain washing away her scent with every step. The station was exactly as depressing as she'd imagined. Fluorescent lights, cracked plastic seats, a ticket counter staffed by a man who looked like he'd given up on life around the same time the building was constructed. 1 ticket to Portland, Isolde said, her voice steady despite everything. Leaves in 20 minutes, $58. She paid in cash, took the ticket, found a seat in the corner where she could watch the door. Her phone buzzed. Not the burner, her real phone. Dominic? Where are you, Dominic? Isolde. Answer me, Dominic. This isn't funny. Come back. She turned the phone off, pulled it apart, dropped the battery in 1 trash can, the SIM card in another, the phone itself in a third. From her duffel, she pulled out a glass jar of dried wolfsbane, measured out a careful amount. Boiled water from the station's coffee maker, bitter and metallic. Brewed the tea right there under the fluorescent lights. It smelled like earth and death. She drank it in 3 swallows. The effect was immediate. Her stomach cramped. Nausea hit in waves. Her wolf, already subdued, went completely silent. Their connection dulled to a distant ache, and her scent changed, became human, ordinary, forgettable. The bus pulled up at 2:47 a.m. She climbed aboard, found a seat in the back, and watched the station disappear into rain and darkness. Her phone, Theo's burner, stayed silent in her pocket. The woman sitting across the aisle was reading a romance novel with a shirtless man on the cover. She looked up as Isolde sat down, offered a sympathetic smile. Running from something or running to something, she asked. Isolde pulled her jacket tighter. Does it matter? I suppose not. The woman went back to her book. 3 rows up, someone was snoring. The bus smelled like diesel and desperate choices. Outside, Washington State rolled past in the dark, showing all shadow and rain. Isolde closed her eyes. Her stomach churned from the wolf's bane. Her chest ached. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. But she was free, or as close to free as a woman with a dying wolf and a broken connection could get. The bus stopped in Portland at dawn. She didn't get off. Stayed on through the transfer, bought a ticket to the coast with the name Isolde Woods, Seaside, Oregon, a town small enough to disappear in, large enough not to be notable. She arrived at 11 a.m., stepped off the bus into salt air and fog, found a studio apartment above a tackle shop, paid 2 months' rent in cash to a landlord who didn't ask questions, got a job at the Anchor, a diner that smelled like coffee and fried fish and the kind of desperation that came with early morning shifts. The owner was a woman named Willa Hayes, 58 years old with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. She took one look at Isolde, pale, hollow-eyed, trying not to shake, and said, "You're hired. Start tomorrow. Don't steal. Don't show up drunk, and we'll get along fine." That night in her small room with its single window overlooking an alley, Isolde brewed another cup of wolfsbane tea, choked it down, felt her wolf recede further, a distant memory of wild. Then she pulled out her grandmother's journal, read the entry from June 12th, 1988. "The elders think they own us because we're female. They're wrong. We own ourselves. Never forget that." Isolde traced the words with her finger. Then she pulled out a pen and wrote her own entry in the margin. "I didn't forget grandmother. I'm just learning what it costs." Across town at the Greyhound station, an elderly woman sat down on a bench with her knitting. Doctor. Petra Winters, recently retired from Seaside General Hospital, had lived in this town for 30 years. She knew everyone, everything, and she'd seen the girl who'd stumbled off the bus this morning, seen the too careful way she moved, the hollow look in her eyes, the bruised dark shadows underneath, running from something Petra thought, or someone. She'd seen it before, would probably see it again, but something about this girl stuck with her, the way she'd held herself, spine straight despite everything, head high even when the world was trying to beat her down. Petra finished her row of knitting, made a note on her phone to stop by the Anchor for lunch tomorrow. Some girls needed saving, others just needed someone to witness them saving themselves. She had a feeling Isolde Woods was the latter, but time would tell. And 300 miles north, in a pack house that suddenly felt enormous and empty, Dominic Thorne stood at his bedroom window and felt their connection pull. South, it whispered. She went south. Corvus had told him to let her go. Give her time. She'd come back. They always came back. But Dominic's wolf knew better. Some things once broken stayed broken. Some queens, once they removed their own crown, never let anyone put it back. He just didn't know yet that the woman he'd thrown away was carrying the air he'd burned his entire world to obtain. But he would. Oh, he would. The thing about poison is that it works slowly. A little death every day until you forget what living felt like. For 6 weeks in Seaside, Oregon, Isolde Woods drank wolfsbane tea every morning and felt herself disappear. The Anchor was the kind of diner that had been serving the same menu since 1987 and saw no reason to change. Vinyl booths patched with duct tape. A jukebox that only played country music from before the millennium. Coffee that could strip paint but somehow tasted like comfort at 5 a.m. Isolde worked the morning shift, 6 to 2, 5 days a week. Poured coffee for fishermen who smelled like salt and diesel. Served eggs to truckers passing through on Highway 101. Smiled until her face hurt, and her tips added up to something that might keep her fed. Willa Hayes ran the place like a benevolent dictator. She didn't tolerate tardiness, didn't accept excuses, but she also slipped extra 20s into paychecks when she thought someone needed it. Asked no questions about pasts, demanded only present reliability. She took one look at Isolde on day 3 and said, "You running from a man or running from yourself?" Isolde had been wiping down the counter. Her hands stilled. "Does it matter?" "Suppose not. Just wanted you to know he shows up here. I've got a shotgun under the register and 20 years of not giving a damn about consequences." It was the closest thing to maternal protection Isolde had felt in months. Her throat tightened. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't let whatever you're running from make you forget you're still alive." But that was the problem. The wolf's bane was doing exactly that, making her forget she was anything more than human. Anything more than waitress tips in studio apartment silence. By the 3rd week in Seaside, she'd stopped dreaming. By the 4th, she couldn't remember what Dominic's face looked like without checking the memory like a photograph, static and flat. Their connection had dulled to a distant ache, like a tooth that only hurt when she pressed on it. So she stopped pressing. Dr. Petra Winters became a regular on Tuesday of the 5th week. She'd walk in at exactly 11:30 a.m., order black coffee and a tuna melt, and sit in the corner booth with medical journals she never seemed to actually read. Instead, she watched. Isolde felt those eyes on her, careful, assessing. On the 3rd Tuesday, Dr. Petra spoke. "You're not sleeping." Isolde was refilling her coffee. "Is that a diagnosis? An observation? Dark circles under the eyes. Slight tremor in the hands. Pallor that suggests anemia or something more deliberate. Isolde set the pot down harder than intended. I'm fine. Of course you are. Dr. Petra's smile was gentle, knowing. We're all fine until we're not. She left a $20 tip on a $12 meal. The next Tuesday, she asked, are you eating keeping it down? Isolde's hand tightened on her order pad. Is there something specific you need, or are you just conducting a free clinic from booth 7-1? I'm conducting a conversation with someone who reminds me of my daughter. She used to look at me the same way you're looking at me now, like kindness was a trap. Was it? Sometimes, but not always. Dr. Petra stood left another 20. My office is 3 blocks south. Blue building can't miss it. If you ever need medical care from someone who doesn't report to anyone but herself, you know where to find me. She left before Isolde could respond. The nausea started on a Monday of the 6th week in Seaside. A flutter in Isolde's stomach when she poured coffee. A sudden aversion to the smell of bacon grease. Nothing she couldn't ignore. By Wednesday's lunch rush, it was harder. The fluorescent lights felt too bright. Everything smelled wrong. Too intense. She blamed the wolf's bane, the poison building in her system. She made it through her shift, went home, brewed a weaker tea, choked it down, threw it back up 20 minutes later. Friday midday rush fishermen just off the boats, hungry and loud. Isolde moved through the chaos on autopilot. Order pad, coffee pot, smile, repeat. She was carrying a tray stacked with dirty dishes when the smell hit her. Bacon, grease, something metallic underneath. The tray slipped. Dishes shattered. The sound was enormous glass and ceramic exploding across linoleum. Then the floor tilted. Isolde heard someone shouting her name from very far away. Then nothing. She woke up in a car. Leather seats. The smell of lavender and antiseptic. Through the window, Oregon coast sliding past in shades of gray. Easy. Dr. Petra's voice calm and clinical. You fainted. I'm taking you to my clinic. Isolde tried to sit up. The world spun. I'm fine. I just need to stop lying to yourself. I agree. But first you need blood work. The clinic was small, clean, the kind of place that served the town's uninsured, its people who needed medical care without questions. Dr. Petra settled Isolde on an exam table. Drew blood with practiced efficiency. When did you last have a full physical? 3 years ago. And you've been feeling sick for how long? Isolde didn't answer. Let me guess. 6 weeks, right around the time you got to town. Dr. Petra labeled the vials. What are you taking, Marks? Excuse me. I've been a doctor for 30 years. I know what poison looks like. What I can't figure out is why someone would deliberately poison themselves. She met Isolde's eyes. Unless they're trying to hide. The silence stretched. Finally, Isolde said, if I tell you, are you required to report it? Depends on what it is. But doctor-patient confidentiality extends pretty far when the doctor chooses to interpret it generously. Wolf's bane. Small doses. Daily. Dr. Petra's expression didn't change. Didn't even flicker. I see. And you're taking it because it suppresses werewolf scent. Makes me smell human. Untrackable. By whom? Isolde looked away. People I don't want to find me. Dr. Petra was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I delivered my first werewolf baby in 1998. Coastal pack, nothing as political as what you're probably running from, but I know enough to know that wolf's bane is dangerous, especially in the doses you'd need to maintain scent suppression. It's worth the risk. Is it? Dr. Petra gestured to the exam table. You collapsed in the middle of a diner. Your hands shake. Your color is terrible. How long before the poison does permanent damage? As long as it needs to. The doctor sighed, stood. I'm going to run these tests. You're going to sit here and not run away. Then we're going to have a conversation about whether dying a slowly is really better than whatever you're running from. She left the room. Isolde sat there surrounded by the smell of antiseptic and the sound of her own breathing. Through the window she could see the ocean, gray and endless and indifferent. Their connection pulsed, faint but present. Dominic, 300 miles north, probably didn't even notice. Isolde closed her eyes, tried to find her wolf, found only silence. Dr. Petra came back 20 minutes later. She was holding a printout. Her expression was carefully neutral. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. You're anemic, dehydrated, malnourished. She paused. And you're 8 weeks pregnant. The words didn't make sense. Isolde heard them, processed the syllables, but they might as well have been in a language she didn't speak. That's impossible. The blood test doesn't lie. HCG levels are elevated. It's early, but it's definitive. 8 weeks. Isolde did the math, went cold. 8 weeks ago was early September, before Lillian arrived, before everything shattered, their last night together. She'd been on edge, some pack business Dominic wouldn't discuss. He'd come to bed late smelling of council meetings and stress. She'd reached for him anyway, seeking comfort in familiar skin. It hadn't felt significant, just normal. And now, I can't be pregnant, Isolde said. Her voice sounded distant. I'm infertile, every test, every specialist, 5 years of trying. Dr. Petra sat down. Who told you that? The pack doctor. Well, the elder. He had the results. Ovarian failure. It was definitive. Did you see the actual test results? Or just a summary? Isolde opened her mouth, closed it. I don't remember. It was 3 years ago. I was told I couldn't have children. And yet, Dr. Petra tapped the printout. Here we are. The room felt too small. Isolde's chest was tight. This can't be happening. I need you to listen to me very carefully. The doctor's voice was firm, clinical. You are pregnant and you are taking a substance that is highly toxic to developing fetuses. If you continue the wolf's bane, you will miscarry, probably within the week. The words landed like stones. Isolde looked down at her hands, flat stomach, no visible evidence, just cells dividing in darkness, building something that shouldn't exist. Dominic's child, the heir he'd destroyed their marriage to obtain growing inside the woman he'd thrown away. The irony was so sharp it cut. What are my options? Her voice was steady, detached. Stop the wolf's bane immediately. Start prenatal vitamins. Get proper nutrition and rest, or don't. But understand that continuing as you are will end this pregnancy. If I stop the poison, my scent comes back. Yes, the people hunting me will find me. Probably. And if they find me pregnant, Isolde stopped, couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Petra leaned forward. I don't know what you're running from, but I know this a child deserves to be born to a mother who chose them, not a mother who was trapped. Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not theirs. Isolde sat there for a long time. The sun moved across the floor. Dust motes drifted in the light. Finally, she said, I need to think. Take your time, but not too much. Dr. Petra handed her a bottle. Prenatal vitamins, if you decide to proceed, and Isolde. For what it's worth, the fact that you got pregnant naturally after being told it was impossible, that suggests someone lied to you. That night, Isolde sat in her studio apartment with two things in front of her. On the left, the jar of wolfsbane, purple flowers dried to brittleness, safety, invisibility, slow death. On the right, the bottle of prenatal vitamins, yellow capsules, risk, vulnerability, life. She pulled out Grandmother Marin's journal, flipped to an entry she'd read a dozen times. April 2nd, 1987. They told me I was broken after the first miscarriage, said my body wasn't meant for children. I believed them for a year. Then I met a healer who asked to see my actual medical files. Turns out someone had altered them. Some men destroy women slowly, death by paperwork and lies. Isolde stared at the words. Someone had altered them. She thought about Corvus, about the way he'd personally delivered her infertility diagnosis 3 years ago, about the folder she'd found in his safe labeled Project Replacement, about the real medical files from 5 years ago that said Ovarian Reserve Excellent, no abnormalities detected. He'd lied about her fertility, which meant everything else was probably a lie too. Lillian's genetic tests, the ultrasound, the proof that she was carrying Dominic's heir, all of it carefully constructed fiction. Isolde's hand moved, not to the wolfsbane, to the prenatal vitamins. She opened the bottle, took one capsule, swallowed it dry. Then she poured the wolfsbane down the sink, watched the purple flowers swirl away with rust-stained water. Her wolf stirred, faint, confused, like something waking from surgery. By morning, the withdrawal would start. By the end of the week, her scent would bloom back. Wildflowers and rain, and something ancient that marked her as royal bloodline. And the hunters would follow. But she'd made her choice. The child growing inside her, Dominic's child, her child, the impossible heir, deserved a mother who was alive, who was wolf, who was willing to fight, even if fighting meant running, especially if fighting meant running. The withdrawal was agony. For 3 days, Isolde lay on her bathroom floor, sweating poison and shaking apart. Fever spiked to 104. Hallucinations crawled the walls, shadows with Dominic's eyes, Corvus's voice whispering that she was worthless. Lillian laughing from the doorway. Willa found her on day 2, let herself in with the spare key she'd somehow acquired, didn't ask questions, Just set up camp with cool cloths and ginger ale and the kind of stubborn presence that said, I'm not leaving. Dr. Petra checked on her twice daily, monitored vitals, made sure the pregnancy held despite the chemical warfare happening in Isolde's body. On day 4, the fever broke. Isolde woke up weak but clear-headed. Her wolf was there, not strong but present, a flicker of awareness in her mind's eye, and her scent was back. She could feel it. The way the air around her had changed, no longer neutral human, now distinctly other, wildflowers after rain, something older underneath, the scent that marked her as Luna, former Luna. Willa helped her to the shower. You look like death warmed over. Feel like it too. Good, means you're still alive enough to complain. Willa handed her clean clothes. Whatever you were taking, don't take it again. I won't. And whatever you're running from, it's going to catch up eventually. They always do. Isolde met her eyes in the mirror. I know. So what's the plan? Keep running, just faster this time. Willa nodded, like this made perfect sense. Like women ran from terrible things every day, and the only real question was how far and how fast. You need anything, you call me. I don't care what time. I don't care what trouble. You call. Isolde's throat tightened. Why are you helping me? Because 30 years ago, I was the one running, and someone helped me. Figure I'm just paying it forward. Willa squeezed her shoulder. Now eat something. You're skinny enough to blow away. The burner phone rang at 2 a.m. Isolde jerked awake, heart hammering. Only one person had this number. Theo Boehm. Isolde, thank God. His voice was rough, strained. Are you safe? Define safe. Not dead, not captured, not anywhere Dominic can find you. She sat up. What happened? Everything. A pause. Background noise, wind maybe, like he was outside. Dominic is losing his mind. When he realized you were actually gone, he nearly killed Corvus. Elite trackers are scouring the western seaboard. Her hand went to her stomach, still flat, no evidence yet. What about Lillian? I thought he had his heir. A bitter laugh. That's the thing, Isolde. Something's wrong. Her scent is changing. Dominic's wolf is rejecting her completely. The pack is restless. They can feel the king's instability. What do you mean wrong? I don't know yet, but I got access to some of her medical files from her original pack. There are discrepancies, big ones. She heard him sigh. I'm working on it. But Isolde, listen, they found fabric near the state line. Fragment of your jacket. They have your scent. They're moving south. The room suddenly felt very small, very exposed. How long do I have? I don't know. Days, maybe a week. You need to move. Now. Isolde looked around the studio, barely lived in, easy to abandon. Theo, don't tell me where you're going. I can't know. If Dominic questions me under Alpha Command, I have to answer. His voice dropped. But Isolde, whatever you do, don't let him find out you're pregnant. If he knows you're carrying the true heir. He didn't finish, didn't need to. A pregnant Luna was a political asset, a weapon, a thing to be locked away and controlled until the heir was born. He won't find out, she said. I'm just a runaway. Tell him whatever you need to. Be safe. I'll call when I can. The line went dead. Isolde sat there in the dark, one hand on her belly, and started planning her next disappearance. 300 miles north. Dominic Thorne stood at his bedroom window and watched dawn bleed across the sound. He hadn't slept in 48 hours. Couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt their connection pull south, and his wolf went insane. She was alive. He knew that much. Their bond would have shattered if she died. But she was suffering. He could feel it through the connection. Pain. Fear. Something wrong with her body. Guilt ate at him like acid. Behind him, the bedroom door opened. He didn't turn. Any news? Lillian's voice. Tentative. She'd been trying to play supportive mate for weeks. It wasn't working. No. Dominic, you need to eat, sleep. You're running yourself into the ground. I'm fine. You're not fine. She stopped, took a breath. The council wants to know when we're announcing the pregnancy publicly. The solstice gala is in 2 weeks. He turned then, looked at her properly for the first time in days. She was beautiful. Objectively. Golden hair, perfect features, the swell of pregnancy visible under her silk robe. And his wolf wanted nothing to do with her. It had started subtly, a discomfort when she was near, an aversion to her scent. Now it was visceral. His animal recoiled every time she entered the room. Your scent is different, he said. She froze. What? When you first arrived, you smelled like vanilla orchids. Now there's something else. Something sour. I'm pregnant. Scents change during pregnancy. It's normal. Is it? He stepped closer. She stepped back. Because my wolf is telling me something's very wrong. And I've learned the hard way that ignoring my wolf leads to mistakes I can't fix. Lillian's hand went to her belly, protective. Are you questioning the paternity? We have a genetic tests. You saw them. I saw papers Corvus provided. That's not the same thing. What are you saying? What was he saying, that he'd thrown away his true mate based on evidence he'd never properly verified, that he'd been so desperate for an heir, he'd let himself be manipulated, that he was beginning to suspect everything about this situation was a carefully constructed lie? I'm saying I want independent verification. New tests from a doctor I choose, not Corvus. Lillian's face went pale. Of course, whatever you need. But her eyes said liar, and his wolf, for the first time in months, agreed with his human instincts. The pack doctor, Dr. Iris Yamamoto, examined Lillian 2 days later. Dominic stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching. When it was over, Dr. Yamamoto pulled him aside. I'd like to see her medical records from before she came here. Prenatal care, genetic testing, all of it. Why? Because some things aren't adding up. The fetal development seems inconsistent with the timeline she's provided, and her hormone levels are unusual. Get the records. I've requested them from her original pack in Oregon. They're being difficult about releasing them. Of course they were. Dominic called Theo. I need you to do something for me. Name it. Hack into the Oregon Health Sciences University Hospital database. Find everything on Lillian Ashford. Genetic tests, ultrasounds, everything. A pause. That's illegal. So is forging paternity tests, which I'm beginning to suspect is exactly what happened. Dominic's voice was cold, flat. Get me those files, Theo. I don't care how. Give me 48 hours. Isolde left Seaside at 3 a.m., packed what she could carry, left 2 months' rent on the counter for the landlord. A note for Willa. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry I can't stay. She bought a car from a fisherman named Gary. 2004 Volvo, rusted and beaten, smelling like wet dog and cigarettes. Perfect camouflage. Paid $3,000 in cash. No paperwork. No trail. Drove south on Highway 101. Rain hammering the windshield. The ocean churning, gray and violent to her right. By dawn, she'd crossed into California. By noon, she'd found Trinidad, a fog-drenched coastal village surrounded by redwoods. Population 367. The kind of place where nobody asked questions because everyone had something to hide. She found a cabin through an ad in a gas station bathroom. Off-grid, no electricity, well-water wood stove. 6 months rent up front, cash only. The landlord was a woman in her 70s with long gray braids and kind eyes. Running from something, aren't we all? Suppose so, she handed over the keys. Outhouse is back there. Firewood's in the shed. Nearest town is 15 miles. We don't bother each other much up here. Suits most folks fine. Isolde moved in that afternoon. The cabin was small, one room, windows that didn't quite close, a mattress that smelled like cedar and thyme. But it was hers, and it was hidden. She was 3 months pregnant now. Starting to show, though, not obviously, just enough that she had to wear looser clothes. Her wolf was growing stronger. The pregnancy hormones seemed to amplify it. She could shift again, though she was careful, didn't want to risk the baby. Every day she checked her phone, waited for Theo's call. It came on day 7 in Trinidad. Isolde, we have a problem. Her stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The kind where everything we thought we knew is a lie. Papers rustling. I got into Lillian's medical records, her real ones. And the ultrasound she showed Dominic dated wrong. The pregnancy is 9 months along, not 5. She's due any day. Isolde's hand tightened on the phone. What? The genetic markers showing sterling bloodline forged, paid for by a clinic in Portland that specializes in custom lab results. Wire transfer of $50,000 from Elder Corvus Blackwood. The world tilted. The baby's not Dominic's, Isolde said. Not a question. A fact clicking into place. The baby's not Dominic's. Father is a rogue alpha named Declan Reed. Lillian's been with him for over a year. More papers. And Isolde, I found your medical files, the real ones, from 5 years ago. She already knew, but hearing it said out loud was different. I was never infertile. You were never infertile. Corvus forged the diagnosis. He's been planning this for years, since before you even married Dominic. This was always about revenge, about replacing Marin's bloodline with something he could control. Isolde leaned against the cabin wall. Does Dominic know? He knows now. I showed him everything an hour ago. Theo's voice was grim. Isolde, he executed Corvus. Public trial, entire council as witnesses. stripped Lillian of her title and exiled her. Then he called back all the trackers. He's hunting you himself. Static crackled. Theo. And Isolde, without the wolf's bane suppressing your scent, he caught it on the wind 3 days ago. He's already in Northern California. The phone slipped from her hand, clattered on the wooden floor. She looked out the window. Redwoods stretching forever, fog rolling in thick and heavy. Somewhere out there, moving fast, was the man she'd fled. The man who'd thrown her away. The man who now knew he'd been deceived. And he was hunting. For his mate. For the child she was carrying that he didn't know existed. Isolde put her hand on her belly, 4 months pregnant, barely showing but undeniably there. If he found her like this, their connection flared. Sudden, violent. He was close. Closer than Theo thought. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Outside in the deepening fog, something moved. Large, fast, wolf-shaped. Isolde grabbed her hunting knife, back toward the center of the cabin. Then the first contraction hit. Pain tore through Isolde's abdomen. Sharp, wrong. She was only 19 weeks by human counting. This shouldn't be happening. She looked down, saw wetness spreading down her jeans. Not blood, water. Her water had broken. Another contraction, stronger. Her wolf surged forward, protective and fierce. This wasn't a miscarriage. This was labor. Werewolf biology doing what it had done for millennia. Protecting the bloodline at all costs. The stress of being hunted had triggered an accelerated pregnancy. Her body recognizing threat was bringing the heir to term faster than human gestation allowed. The ancient bloodline ensuring its survival, even if it killed the mother in the process. Through the window she saw him, Dominic, standing at the edge of the clearing, rain-soaked, wild. His eyes completely shifted amber and inhuman. He saw her through the window, saw her on her knees clutching her belly, saw the water pooling on the floor, saw everything. Their eyes met across 50 feet of rain and fog and shattered trust. She saw the exact moment he understood, the exact moment he realized what he'd thrown away. The heir he'd burned the world to find was here, growing inside the woman he'd forsaken. Going into labor 4 months early because stress and terror had triggered her body's final defense. Dominic moved toward the cabin, not running, walking, like approaching a wounded animal, and Isolde, through the agony of contractions that shouldn't be happening, made a choice. Her hand reached for the door. She pulled it open. Dominic was inside in seconds. He crashed to his knees beside her, his hands hovering over her body like he didn't know if he was allowed to touch. Isolde, the baby, is coming whether we want it to or not. Her voice was steady despite the pain. So you have one choice. Help me or leave. I'll never leave you again. It came out broken, a vow and an apology. Tell me what to do. She looked at him, really looked. The Alpha King of the Western Territories reduced to this, desperate, begging for the privilege of catching his own child. Good. Clean water, towels. There's a first aid kit under the sink. Another contraction hit. She wrote it out, breathing through her teeth. And get Dr. Petra Winters, Seaside Medical Clinic. Her number's in my phone. Dominic moved like lightning, found the supplies, grabbed her phone with shaking hands. There's no signal, he said, voice cracking. We're too remote. Of course there wasn't. Isolde looked at the window, storm rolling in thick fog, nightfall coming fast. No hospital within 30 miles. No doctor. No help. Just her and him and 6 hours of labor ahead. Then it's just us, she said. Dominic's jaw clenched. I've never delivered a baby. Neither have I. She grabbed his hand, squeezed hard enough to feel bones shift. We're going to learn fast. The storm hit like divine punishment. Thunder shook the cabin walls. Lightning turned the windows white. Rain hammered the roof so loud they had to shout to hear each other. Dominic had gotten her to the bed, stripped away her wet clothes with clinical efficiency, no hint of anything but focus. He'd seen childbirth before. Pack births, enough to know the basics. But this was different. This was his mate, his child, his fault. Hour 1 came with contractions every 10 minutes. Manageable. Isolde breathed through them, her wolf lending her strength. Dominic sat beside the bed holding her hand, letting her crush his bones with every wave. He didn't speak. What could he say that would matter? Instead, he did what she asked. Brought water, wiped sweat from her forehead, counted seconds through contractions. Their connection was alive again, fully present for the first time in months. She could feel his guilt pouring through it like acid, his grief, his desperate need to fix what he'd broken. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she let him help, because pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Hour 2, the contractions came faster. every 7 minutes, then 5. Tell me about Corvus, she said through gritted teeth. Needed to focus on something other than pain. Dominic's hand tightened on hers. I executed him. Public trial before the entire council. Showed them the evidence Theo found. The forged medical records, the payments, the 40-year vendetta against your bloodline. How did he die? By my hand, Alpha's justice. His voice was flat, dead. I tore his throat out in front of everyone. Made sure they understood what happens to those who manipulate the crown. Another contraction. Isolde arched, gasping. When it passed, she said, and Lillian, stripped of title, exiled to neutral territory, Declan Reed with her. A pause. She was a pawn, Isolde. Corvus threatened her father's pack, promised to save them if she cooperated. She's not innocent, but she's not the villain either. Isolde absorbed this, found she had no hatred left for Lillian. No anger, just exhaustion and the overwhelming need to survive the next 5 hours. What about the pack, she asked, falling apart without you? Simple. Honest. The council is fractured. Half want me to abdicate. The other half are too terrified of the chaos that would follow. Theo's been holding it together, but barely. And you, what do you want? Dominic looked at her, those inhuman eyes so raw. I want to earn the right to be in the same room as you. I want to undo every choice I made that hurt you. He stopped, started again. I want to be worthy of the dirt you walk on. And I know I'm not. I know I may never be, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying. It should have felt satisfying, this submission. Instead, it just felt sad. Hour 3 brought transition. The contractions were constant now, barely any rest between them. Isolde's wolf was fully present, lending her a strength that should have been impossible. She shifted partially, claws extended, eyes amber. Her body caught between forms, using whatever biology would get this child into the world safely. Dominic watched with something like awe. I've never seen a partial shift during labor. Royal bloodline, her voice was rough. Wolf and woman speaking together. We adapt. Marin did this too. According to her journal, she wrote about it, called it the mother's gift. Isolde gasped as another contraction hit. The ability to become whatever the child needs to survive. Dominic's expression crumpled. I'm so sorry, for all of it. For believing I needed an heir more than I needed you. For not questioning Corvus. For being so desperate to secure the bloodline that I couldn't see I was destroying it. Save the apologies. She gripped his hand. Help me push. Hour 4, something changed. Through the storm, through the rain, Isolde heard tires on the dirt road. An engine. Headlights cutting through fog. The cabin door burst open. Dr. Petra Winters stood there, soaked and furious. I drove 3 hours through a hurricane because Willa Hayes called me from a payphone and said, and I quote, that girl you've been worrying about is probably giving birth in the woods with only a werewolf king for company. Behind her, Willa herself appeared, carrying supplies. Practical. Unfazed. Figured you could use some actual help, Willa said. Isolde could have wept with relief. Dr. Petra took one look at the situation. Isolde half shifted, Dominic holding her hand like a lifeline, the evidence of labor everywhere, and snapped into professional mode. How far apart are contractions? 2 minutes, Dominic said. How long has she been laboring? 4 hours. Dr. Petra examined Isolde quickly, efficiently. You're at 8 centimeters, almost there. She looked at Dominic. You must be the mate who threw her away. Yes. Well, make yourself useful. Hold her shoulders. And don't faint. I've got enough to deal with. Willa set up supplies. Clean towels, blankets, a basin of hot water from the stove. She moved like someone who'd done this before. Many times. You've delivered babies, Isolde asked between contractions. 6, all in places that weren't hospitals. You'll be fine, honey. Willa squeezed her hand. Women have been doing this since the dawn of time. Your body knows what to do. Hour 5 brought the worst of it. The contractions were on top of each other now. No rest, no break, just wave after wave of transformative agony. Isolde's claws dug into Dominic's shoulders. She didn't mean to. Couldn't help it. He didn't flinch. Let her tear into him. Blood soaked his shirt. His own pain nothing compared to hers. Their connection was wide open. She could feel him taking as much of her pain as it would allow, channeling it into himself. Sharing the burden. It didn't make it easier, but it made it bearable. I need to push, she gasped. Dr. Petra checked. Not yet. Wait for the next now. Okay, listen to your body. The doctor positioned herself. Next contraction, you push. Dominic support her shoulders. Willa get ready with towels. The contraction built like a tsunami. Isolde pushed. The pain was obliterating, complete. She screamed, not caring who heard, and her wolf howled with aim. Good. Again. Next one, give me everything. She pushed again and again. Lost count, lost sense of time. All that existed was pain and effort and Dominic's voice in her ear, rough and steady. You can do this. You are the strongest person I've ever known. Just a little more. Hour 6 dawn broke. The storm began to clear. First light crept through the windows, turning everything gold. And Isolde pushed one final time. The sound that filled the cabin was sharp, piercing, perfect. A cry, my doctor. Petra caught the baby, small, so impossibly small, but moving, breathing, alive. It's a boy, she said softly, and he's perfect. She placed him on Isolde's chest, tiny, wrinkled, covered in evidence of the impossible, but alive, breathing. His eyes opened, gray-blue like all newborns, but there on his left shoulder blade, a birthmark in the shape of a crescent moon, the mark of Marin's bloodline, the mark of royalty. Isolde touched his face with shaking fingers. Hello, I'm your mother, and you are the most stubborn, miraculous thing I've ever seen. Beside her, Dominic was crying, silent tears streaming down his face. His hand hovered over the baby, not touching, not assuming. What's his name? Dr. Petra asked, cutting the cord with practiced efficiency. Isolde looked at her son. At this child who shouldn't exist, who'd been born 4 months early by werewolf biology and sheer willpower, who'd survived poison and abandonment and a mother who'd almost given up. Caspian, she said, because he crossed an impossible sea to be here. Dr. Petra cleaned the baby, checked his vitals. He's small, 4 pounds maybe, but strong. Werewolf healing should compensate. She wrapped him in clean blankets, handed him back to Isolde. You did good, Mama. Isolde held her son, felt his warmth, his heartbeat against hers, and looked at Dominic. He was still kneeling beside the bed, still crying, still not assuming he had any right to this moment. You can hold him, she said quietly. Dominic's eyes widened. I don't. Hold your son, Dominic. He took Caspian with trembling hands, held him like glass, like miracles. His expression crumbled completely. He has your eyes, Dominic whispered. Marin's eyes. He has your stubbornness. Came into the world 4 months early because he couldn't wait. A broken laugh. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. For all of it. Isolde's exhaustion was complete, bone deep. But she needed to say this while she still had strength. I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not for years. She met his eyes. But you helped bring him into the world. That counts for something. What do you need? Anything? Tea, she said. Make me tea. Then we'll talk about what happens next. 1 month later, the cabin had become both sanctuary and prison. Isolde recovered slowly. Childbirth at this stage was traumatic, even with supernatural healing. Dr. Petra checked on her daily. Willa brought supplies weekly. Theo video called on the burner phone with pack updates. And Dominic stayed, not in the bed, not even in the same room. He slept on the floor beside the door. Like penance. He did everything Isolde asked and nothing she didn't. Cooked meals, cleaned, chopped firewood, changed diapers when she was too exhausted to move. He learned to swaddle Caspian, to recognize different cries, to sing lullabies in a voice rough with disuse. The songs were old, pack songs, the same ones Marin had sung. He never touched Isolde, never assumed intimacy, never tried to rekindle what they'd had. He just served, quietly, completely. And Isolde watched, cold, assessing. Trust wasn't rebuilt in days, or weeks, or even months. But watching him with Caspian, watching the way he'd stare at their son with naked wonder, the way he'd whisper promises to do better, something in her began to thaw. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. 2 months after Caspian's birth, Theo called. The pack needs an answer. It's been 10 weeks. They want to know when their Luna is coming home. Isolde was nursing Caspian. Dominic was at the window giving her privacy, always giving her space. Tell them I'll return when I'm ready. The council is pushing for a formal decision. Some want Dominic to abdicate. Others want you both to return as joint rulers. It's chaos. Then let it be chaos. She adjusted Caspian. They created this mess. They can sit in it. Theo sighed. Isolde, I understand, but the pack is suffering. There are challenges to Dominic's authority. Border disputes. Without a stable alpha presence. Tell them to schedule a video call, entire pack, tomorrow evening. Dominic turned from the window. What are you planning? Accountability. She looked at him. You're going to confess. Everything. Public. No excuses. He nodded. Yes, Luna. The next evening, the entire Sterling pack gathered in the main hall. 3,000 wolves assembled before a massive screen. Isolde appeared on camera. She'd lost weight, looked harder, older, but her spine was straight, her eyes clear. Dominic knelt beside her, on camera, in front of everyone. My name is Dominic Thorne. I am Alpha King of the Western Territories, and I have failed you. The hall went silent. 5 months ago, I believed lies told by Elder Corvus Blackwood. I allowed him to manipulate me, to convince me that political stability mattered more than truth, more than honor, more than my own mate. He detailed everything, the forged medical records, the falsified paternity tests, the conspiracy to remove Isolde and install a puppet Luna. I threw away my true mate because I was weak, because I was afraid, because I valued the appearance of an heir more than the woman who stood beside me for 5 years. His voice cracked. Corvus is dead, but his damage remains, and I am responsible. Not just for believing him, but for creating an environment where such manipulation was possible. He looked at the camera, at the pack watching. I hereby strip myself of unilateral authority. Effective immediately, all major pack decisions will be joint rulings between myself and Luna Isolde. I serve at her pleasure, and if she chooses to remove me, I will accept that judgment. The hall erupted. Shouts, arguments, confusion. Isolde leaned into frame. I accept his apology. Her voice cut through the noise. But accepting an apology is not the same as granting forgiveness. Trust is earned through time, not words. She let that sit. I will return to the pack when my son is strong enough to travel. Until then, Theo Cross serves as acting alpha. Any challenges to this arrangement will be considered a challenge to me personally. The room went quiet. Nobody challenged Luna, especially not one who just survived what Isolde had survived. One more thing. Elder Corvus Blackwood's seized assets, all $2 million, will fund a free fertility clinic for PAC members. Medical care, counseling, support, so that no one else suffers the lies I was told. She ended the call. Dominic stayed kneeling. You didn't have to defend me, he said quietly. I didn't defend you. I stated facts. She stood Caspian, sleeping against her shoulder. But you took the first step, acknowledgement. Now comes the harder part. What's that change? Month 3 brought crisis. Caspian got sick in the middle of the night. Fever. Werewolf infants developed immunity differently than humans. Their first fever was brutal, necessary, but terrifying. His temperature spiked to 104. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't stop crying. Dr. Petra checked him. It's normal, painful but normal. His wolf is integrating. Keep him cool. Lots of fluids. It'll pass. But it didn't pass. Not that night. Not the next day. Dominic refused to leave Caspian's side. He held the baby through ice baths, walked him through crying fits, sang every lullaby he knew until his voice went hoarse. 72 hours. No sleep, no food. Just father and son. Isolde watched from the doorway. Saw him break down on hour 60. Saw him whisper desperate prayers to Marin's spirit. Please, please don't take him. I just found him. Please. On hour 73, the fever broke. Caspian slept, peacefully, deeply, and Dominic collapsed. Isolde found him on the floor. Caspian on his chest, both of them sleeping. Dominic's face was wet with tears. He was crying in his sleep, whispering, I'm sorry, Marin. I failed your granddaughter. Please forgive me. Isolde knelt beside them, touched Dominic's face gently. His eyes opened, exhausted. He's okay, she said. You did good. I was terrified. I know, so was I. They stayed like that, the 3 of them on the floor. Not quite a family, but not quite broken anymore either. The next morning, Isolde went outside. Needed air, needed to think. She noticed Dominic's boots by the door, covered in mud. But not local mud. This was different. Red clay. She knew that clay, knew exactly where it came from. 6 hours north, at the pack burial grounds, at Marin's grave. Isolde's chest tightened. He'd driven there, while she slept, while Caspian was recovering. Driven 6 hours each way to kneel at her grandmother's grave and beg forgiveness from a ghost. From the matriarch whose rejection 40 years ago had started this entire nightmare. He hadn't told her, hadn't made it a performance, just sought forgiveness from the bloodline he'd dishonored. That was what broke her, not the apologies, not the servitude. This quiet private act of honoring her lineage, of understanding that he'd wronged more than just her. He'd wronged generations, and he was trying to make it right. Month 4 arrived with spring. I'm going back, Isolde said. They were on the cabin porch, Caspian sleeping in a sling against her chest. Dominic sat on the steps carving a toy from wood. When, he asked. Next week. Caspian's strong enough, and the pack needs stability. He nodded, didn't look up from his carving. What do you want from me? Isolde asked. Now he looked up. What do you mean, Ekboim? I'm going back as Luna. You're still Alpha King, technically. What does that look like? Do you want to rule together separately? Do you want me to choose someone else? Dominic set down the knife. I want whatever you want. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. He stood, faced her fully. I spent 5 years taking you for granted, making decisions for us without consulting you, putting pack politics above our bond. I won't do that again. So you're just going to defer to me forever. That's not partnership. That's cowardice. He flinched. Then tell me what you need. Isolde shifted Caspian in the sling, thought carefully. I need you to be my equal, not my servant, not my superior, my equal, which means sometimes you'll disagree with me, sometimes you'll challenge me, and we'll figure it out together. And the pack, we rule together, joint decisions, no more unilateral decrees. She paused. And Dominic, we renew our vows, publicly, in front of everyone. You choose me again, on my terms this time. His eyes widened. You want to remarry me? I want to be clear about what this is. We're not going back to what we had. That's dead. But we can build something new, something stronger. She held his gaze. If you're willing to earn it, I'll spend the rest of my life earning it. Good. Start by making me tea. A laugh, broken but real. Yes, Luna. 1 week later, they arrived at the Sterling pack house at dawn. The entire pack gathered to meet them. Isolde stepped out of the car holding Caspian. Dominic beside her. Not ahead, not behind, beside. The pack saw them, saw the baby, saw the way Dominic looked at Isolde like she was the only thing keeping him upright. Theo approached first, knelt. Welcome home, Luna. Stand up, cousin, she smiled. We're family. We don't kneel. The pack erupted in howls. Welcome, celebration, relief. That night in the pack hall, they renewed their vows. Not the ornate ceremony from 5 years ago. Something simpler, honest. I, Dominic Thorne, choose you, Isolde Moreau. I choose your strength, your wisdom, your refusal to accept less than you deserve. I choose to stand beside you, not above, not below, beside, for as long as you'll have me. Isolde held Caspian, looked at the man who'd broken her, who was learning slowly to be whole. I, Isolde Moreau, choose to try, to build something new from what was broken, to trust that change is possible. But know this, I'm not the woman you married 5 years ago. She died the day you brought Lillian into my home. The woman I am now demands more, expects more, and will never again accept being treated as less than your equal. Dominic smiled, fierce and proud. I wouldn't want you any other way. They kissed, not the passionate kiss of new lovers, but the careful kiss of two people learning to be gentle with each other's scars. The pack howled approval. The pack house library smelled like old leather and new beginnings. Isolde sat in the window seat watching Caspian toddle across the room. 2 years old, starting to form words, starting to understand that he was different, special. The true heir of a bloodline that refused to be erased. Dominic entered with tea, set it beside her. He'd earned the right to share her space. Theo called, he said. The council wants to discuss expansion. British Columbia pack is requesting formal alliance. What do you think? I think we should meet with them. Together. Hear their terms. Decide jointly. She smiled. Look at you, learning to consult. Had a good teacher. He watched Caspian play. Do you ever regret it coming back? Giving me another chance, Isolde considered. I regret what happened. The betrayal, the lisam, the months of pain. She sipped her tea. But I don't regret where we are now. We're better than we were. Stronger. You're stronger. I'm just trying to keep up. Then keep trying for the next 100 years. And maybe by then you'll be worthy? He laughed. Actually laughed. Yes, Luna. Caspian toddled over, held up his arms to Dominic. Up. Papa up. Dominic lifted him, held him close, met Isolde's eyes over their son's dark hair. Thank you, he said, for him, for this, for not giving up when you had every reason to. I didn't do it for you. She touched Caspian's cheek. I did it for me, for him, for the generations of women who were told they were broken when they were just being broken. Outside, the pack was gathering for the evening meal. Wolves of all ages, families, children playing in the twilight. On the desk sat Marin's journal. Isolde's entries now outnumbered her grandmother's. The last one read March 25th. Today, Caspian said, "Mama, for the first time. Your great-grandson has your eyes, your strength, your refusal to be erased. You ran once, came back on your own terms. So did I. The bloodline continues, not because we were perfect, but because we were persistent. Thank you for teaching me that a woman's worth isn't determined by her womb, her mate, or her title. It's determined by her dignity, her choices, her refusal to be anything less than whole. I hope I'm teaching Caspian the same. Your granddaughter, the Luna who saved herself." Isolde closed the journal, looked at her family, imperfect, scarred, but theirs. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt something unfamiliar. Peace, not the peace of forgetting, not the peace of pretending. The peace of a woman who'd walked through fire and chose to build a garden in the ashes. The peace of a queen who'd lost her crown and forged a better one from her own bones. The peace of knowing that she'd saved herself first, and in doing so had saved everyone else.